Okay, I think I have to mute Robbie here. Okay, that's much better. So, welcome everyone who's not on their bikes, but sorry for that, in the webinar room. Great to see you. I'm going to share the screen here so that you can watch our live session here. So, we already have several participants in the room. And I would like to introduce Robbie here again. Robbie, I hope you got your speakers muted now so that we don't hear that echo. Great. So let's see that I can add you here so you can introduce everyone to the platform, I guess.
Hello, everybody. I'm Robbie Ventura. I'm the founder of the Velocity platform. And I am so excited that you're all going to take advantage of this incredible opportunity with Sebastian. We've actually been doing this for Vision Quest for the last about a year and a half, and it has been super effective for our athletes. They can just come on and do a metabolic test, listen to Sebastian kind of walk them through that process like you're going to do today. And it's just been tremendously beneficial because sometimes you have a good day, sometimes you have a bad day. You want to be able to go out and do the test again, really understand why you're doing it. And Sebastian does such a great job of explaining why you're doing each one of these efforts, as well as helping you optimize actually doing the effort. So the Velocity platform is pretty simple. If you're a coach or an athlete, you get to interact. Obviously, we're interacting with Sebastian right now. You can interact with your coach live. You can also do this on demand. But you have a couple of things while you're doing this test day that are going to be important. The first and foremost is just make sure, I know we're not all big FTP fans, but we have to start somewhere. Your FTP is in the upper left-hand corner. Make sure that number up there is kind of correct, right? All your data as it relates to your weight and your body fat and those things are also correct in the system. And then you're going to see some steps along the left-hand side. And Sebastian's going to walk you through all those steps as you go through this process. But if you want to see them again and have a quick reference point to what he actually wants you to do relative to your FTP, you can see it up there on the right-hand side. Below, you're going to have two gauges that are going to be really important. Obviously, the one on the bottom left is going to be your power gauge, and it's as a percentage of your FTP. Now, if you want to see actual power, Sebastian, this is pretty cool. You can just click on that percent average, and it'll change the power. So if you want to know your average power for these efforts, you can easily toggle to average power instead of seeing average percent. Some people are really focused on that. Some people like percent better. It's totally up to you. In the middle of the screen is something really important. That's the time, right? That's the time you're going to be in a given step. And Sebastian's going to have some very important lessons or instructions as it relates to time. So make sure you listen to Sebastian, you look at that clock in the middle, and you optimize what he's trying to have you optimize for a given effort. There's a zone and a watts per kg if you care about that. And then, of course, on the bottom left, you have your cadence gauge. The top number is your actual RPM. The bottom number is your average RPM for that step. So again, the top is your current. The bottom is your average for the current step. That's going to change every time you go through one of these steps. Along the bottom, that's the strip chart. That's what Sebastian's going to walk you through. Those are the efforts that you're going to make throughout the day. And that dotted line is that FTP number up above. So you're going to see you have a couple of really high intensity sprints, kind of a quarter of the way through the effort. Then you have a longer sustained kind of 3-minute effort or whatever Sebastian has there. And then you're going to have a longer final effort. Those purple efforts, that means go all out. Give it everything you have. And Sebastian will walk you through that as well. So if you want any other information on the Velocity platform, please reach out to myself, Robbie, or John Nichols. We'll send you a little note as well. Maybe Igor will send you a note if you want more information. You want to set something like this up for your athletes. And if you're an athlete, get your coach to get on board. I mean, this is a way you can interact with your coach on a regular basis. So without any further ado, Sebastian, I'll kind of let you walk through everything unless you have some questions for me.
No, not for now, Robbie. Thanks for that. Can just emphasize what Robbie said. We've been doing this now for some time. This is the second version already with the improved PPD, with an improved testing protocol, a simplified protocol with less effort. So that's good for you. And it's super smooth. It's a super smooth experience. So Robbie, if you give it a thumbs up, then we go straight into that.
Just one thing. John Nichols just told me the power gauge is obviously on your left. The cadence gauge is on your right. When you look at those two gauges, you're going to know as soon as you start putting power out. Hopefully you've connected your devices. And if you haven't yet, you can still do it while you're doing this. just go up to that little Bluetooth thing in the upper right-hand corner, click on it if you haven't connected your power meter or your trainer to the platform. So good luck, everybody. Enjoy it.
Thank you. So I guess, Robbie, as you're on here, we can start this session. We can start the test straight away, right? I'm going to use a warm-up guys to walk you through it. So I will use the warm-up and the time in between to give you a little bit of background information, why we are doing that, what's happening to your data, and so on and so forth. And then, Robbie, if you want to come back during the all-out efforts, for example, to cheer people up, then I am happy to invite you back in. Okay? So if everyone is ready, then we are going to start this session right now. And again, I'm looking left and right because of my other screen here open. There's also great people joining the webinar and following you live here. Thanks, Dennis, again. So everyone ready? Then we will start this session here right now. So you can see the countdown here. We've got 5 seconds to go. So get ready. It's going to be a relatively easy start, right? So it's going to be an easy first block. We do have these several steps here of a warm-up, which are basically there. It's a little bit of a rehearsal of the sprint, which I'm going to talk to you about. And then you can see on the strip at the bottom, there's a little bit like of a ramp, okay? And I'm going to walk you through this as we go. So on a high level, what you're going to experience here today in those purple efforts that you see, we're going to do 2 sprints, 2 seated sprints, and both sprints come after a resting period. So I know that's very awkward, especially for cyclists. If you would be looking at swimming or something, it would not be that awkward, to basically come to a rest. And so that we do 2 sprints, 20 seconds each, all out seated from a total rest period. Why do we want this? Why do we need this? These 2 sprints are used to calculate the anaerobic, more precisely, glycolytic power of you guys, or in other words, the VLamax. That's also why you were asked to enter your approximately body composition. Because what needs to happen, VLamax, if you come across this term, don't worry. If you're not, I will explain why it's important. It's expressed in millimoles per liter. And so we need to understand body composition in order to go from watts, what we measure here, to liters. So that's the 2 sprints, what the 2 sprints are for. Why that is important? Because it is a marker for your anaerobic, or again, more precisely, glycolytic power. So the higher that number is, the better it is for anything that is short duration, sprints, attacks, efforts, counterattacks, reacting to something, whatever. That's the upside of that metric. So you could just think, oh yeah, then the higher is better, like power output, the higher is better, so the higher the VLamax is better. No, it's not, because if you have a higher glycolytic power, it means you produce more lactate, which means it lowers your threshold, lowers your MLSS, or if you like the term better, your FTP. It also lowers your fat combustion, because the only way how your muscles can produce lactate is out of glucose or glycogen. So you have a higher carbohydrate combustion. So it's kind of a trade-off between how much more of an endurance do you want to be as a rider, meaning lowering it, versus how much you want to be punchy and explosive, meaning increasing it. So that's what we use those 2 efforts for. And then the other big player, which you will be mostly all aware of, is the so-called VO2 max, which is the maximum aerobic power, aerobic capacity. And in order to achieve this, in order to bring your body to reach VO2 max, you need efforts between 3 to 10 minutes. This is why we have 4 minutes and 8 minutes. So we have we have 2 efforts sprints for the VLamax and 2 efforts 4 and 8 minutes for the VO2 max, which means we have redundant data. So if, for example, the first sprint or the 4-minute effort, you felt like the pacing wasn't great, or the gearing wasn't great, or whatever, don't worry. You have 2 efforts, so the system will make up for that. This is exactly the reason why the test is a little bit longer, because we really want to have high accuracy. Okay. If you have any questions along the way and you have the air and the breath to ask, then please raise your hand. I will unmute you, and you can ask any question along the way as you want. Okay. So we are almost done with the first warm-up block. There's almost just like a minute to go. And then we will come to a rest, and then we do only a 6 second sprint as a rehearsal. Dennis, give me 1 second. As a rehearsal of the real sprint. So this is just for you to get a feeling for it. Okay. 6 seconds. Choose the gear. Find your position on the handlebar, on the hoods, on the drops, whatsoever. Okay. And practice the real sprint. So I'm going to unmute Dennis here. You had a question?
Yeah. Nice to meet you all. I have a question about the rest before sprint. We should stop pedaling, or it's a small pedaling?
Yeah. So in a perfect world, you should stop pedaling entirely. The system is looking for less than 0.5 watts per kilogram. So to play it safe, the recommendation is don't pedal.
Stop. Okay. And the rest on the warm-up, we should look to the percentage on the left side, like green percent.
Yes. And that's approximately. That's fine. Okay. So
now stop.
Now stop, 20 seconds. We do a shorter stop because it's just a rehearsal, just a practice, okay? For the sprint, stay seated, accelerate as fast as you possible. Don't aim to shift gears, okay? Don't aim to shift gears. We have 5 seconds to go. Stay seated, try the gear, 2 seconds, 1 second, go. Come on, acceleration, give it all, full gas, give it everything you have. Right. Looking great. Cindy, you maybe are a little bit overgeared and already done. Easy now, okay? So now you have a time to reflect on the sprint and reflect on the gear. If you felt like, oh, I was able to accelerate this fast, meaning you were able to reach peak power within the first 3 to 5 seconds, great. If you feel like you ran out of gears for the real sprint, take a bigger gear. If you feel like, oh, I really have a hard time to bring this up to speed, choose a smaller gear, okay? Good. So now we're going a little bit of a ramp. We really need a ramp which goes a little bit closer to your estimate of FTP thresholds or so forth to activate, especially if you like all these scientific terms, to activate lactate transport. So you might have, let me tell you the story, you might, or very likely you will come across the experience that when you do a set of intervals, the second interval often feels better and easier than the first one. Many know this. One main reason for that is the lactate that you produce in the muscles needs to get transported out of the muscle. And this transport is an active transport, and it happens with some shuttles, with some carriers, which are activated by higher lactate concentration. So you need a one-time higher effort with a little bit of lactate production to activate, I always say, this Uber for the lactate to transport it out to other muscle cells or into the bloodstream. And that's what's a little bit happening now with this ramp. You can see it on the strip below. We're ramping up the intensity a little bit to force your muscles to produce a little bit of lactate, to also, of course, increase VO2, to increase heart rate, to sweat a little bit more, so that you're really prepared for these sprint and especially for these harder efforts, okay? Great question here from the webinar, from Ingo, from Germany, I assume. Why not stand up during the sprint? I love this question. Thanks for that. We have this question quite often. It's very simple. Yes, if you would ride out of the saddle, you could for sure produce more power and get higher numbers. The question that we need to ask ourselves is, how do we want to use the data? So most of you will use the data, for example, to make training zones and have a better informed decision about training. And so training, I would argue, happens primarily seated, right? When you sprint out of the saddle, you use more muscles, your biomechanics change, your gross efficiency changes, everything changes. It's like, I always say, it's like cross-country skiing, only double poling or arms and legs combined. And you simply cannot compare it. So if you would sprint out of the saddle, you use more muscles, everything changes. And you simply cannot apply the data as a measurement from this kind of testing to a situation where you just write seated. So in short, if more than 50% of your training is done out of the saddle, you're allowed to do all the efforts out of the saddle. If more than 50% of your training is done seated, then all the testing is going to be seated. So that means also 4 and 8 minutes effort needs to be primarily seated. Okay. Hope this answers the question, Ingo. If there's more questions, then bring it up here. Happy to answer all of those if I can. Switzerland. Sorry, Ingo. Yeah, it sounds German, so the safest bet was to think you are from Germany. 20 seconds to go. When we ramp it up, and you will see we go to shorter steps. We just go in 1 minute steps to trigger the system. So that's kind of the goal here. So why we are doing that? What you will get out of that? You already mentioned that we will get the VLamax, maximum glycolytic power as a result, and you also get VO2max as a result. And I already mentioned that you have to do 2 efforts. Sorry for that, because we are kind of obsessed with accuracy. If you're interested in that, nice coincidence, just a few days ago, I think a week ago or something, a new research peer-reviewed scientific publication came out in which exactly those efforts, exactly this protocol, which you do today, was validated against metabolic card testing, so lab testing, where you have these fancy rubber masks on. And it showed that it has the same, seriously, the same accuracy as a metabolic card. So what you're doing here, scientifically validated. You can read the publications about it, that the accuracy it has is as good for VO2max as going into a lab. 2 seconds to go to the next step. This is the hardest step, so to speak, of the warm-up, and then there's an easier step afterwards before the resting period. Okay. Good timing right now. If you want to drink something, you feel like you rinse your mouth with a little bit of carbohydrates or whatever you have, that's a good timing to do this right now or after this effort. So in about 30 seconds. Okay. So talking about what else do you get from this kind of testing, mentioned VLamax and VO2max, which is maybe the 2 most important performance indicators. You, of course, get a threshold value, so maximum lactate steady state, the real threshold, so to speak, and not FTP as a proxy. You can even get LT1 if you're interested in that. So if you want to, base your training on something like LT1, that's something you can do. However, most people find more value in actual substrate utilization. So you get fat combustion rates and carbohydrate combustion rate as a function of power output. So if you are interested in at which heart rate, or more important, maybe at which power you burn a certain amount of fat, at which power output you burn the most amount of fat, called FatMax, this is what you get from that, and you can use it to steer your training. And especially with FatMax, as we have 30 seconds here to the resting period, I can explain you why it is beneficial, for example, to do your currently on vogue zone 2 training based on FatMax. There's a good reason why you want to, whatever you call it, zone 1, zone 2, let's say, why you want to do your easy endurance training based on FatMax. Going to explain that in a second. 5 seconds to go to the resting period. Okay, so now we recover, we stop pedaling. Going back to Dennis' question, almost no pedaling at all. What you can do is, if you need to change gears, again, going back to the rehearsal, and you feel like you have been overgeared or undergeared, change the gear now, easy pedaling, that's totally fine. You can also use this time to think about which leg you want to start first, left or right foot first. Remind yourself to stay seated and check which hand position on the handlebar you appreciate most. Most people do it in the drops or on the hoods. That's obviously up to you. Okay. Then about the sprint. The rehearsal was just 6 seconds, which is a little bit tricky because I didn't tell you that it will start to feel hard approximately after 8 seconds. Okay, so be prepared that it will start to feel very ugly at about 8 seconds in, depending on how hard you start. Okay, 6 to 10 seconds. Just push through. That's totally fine. We really want to see how the power goes up, and sorry for that, how it's basically fading down. Okay. About talking about this, I have a question here from Jose. I'm going to answer in a second. Now we concentrate on the sprint. So I'm not sure if Robbie is also doing the sprint here. 10 seconds to go, and then you give it all that you have. Stay seated. Okay, full gas. 3, 2, 1, and go. Come on, give it everything you have. All out. Push it, push it, push it. Come on. Everything, everything. You have 12 seconds to go. Now it feels hard. Just push through. Push through. 8 seconds to go. Come on. 5 seconds. 3 seconds. 2, 1. Good job. Excellent. Okay, now it's just easy pedaling. Okay, easy pedaling to recover. I know that felt super, super hard. Don't underestimate it, right? You now have produced a significant amount of lactate. If you would measure your lactate now, it will be somewhere between 8 to 50 millimoles or 7 to 12, depending on who you are as a rider. So that was kind of a lot, okay? While you recover, I take some questions here from the chat. Eddie, I don't get your question. Sorry, too many Spanish wordings in there. Maybe you can you can rephrase it. There's some questions here about the protocol that you can download on our website. Yes, the protocol on our website doesn't include the warm-up. This is because in a non-online setting, if you do this offline, if you do it out on the road or by yourself on a trainer without this great setup, then you can do the effort, so to speak, in whatever order you want. And we have a lot of people who split it up over 2 days. So we have people who do session 1 sprint, 4 minutes, session 2, the other sprint, 8 minutes. So this is why that is not included. So you have the full flexibility how you'd want to do it if you want to do it by yourself. Next question here from Martin. Wait a second, Dennis. We'll be with you in a second. So can this test be done without power meters? No. We need power. Heart rate is a supplementary. You need power, but it doesn't matter if it's a power that comes from your ergometer or from your kicker, or if it comes from your pedals or SRM or crank power meter, whatever you have, you just need to record power. Okay. Before I come to Dennis' question here, Jose is asking, what if during this 3-minute effort, it's a 4-minute effort, but I know what you mean, the athlete depletes creatine phosphate in the first minute and then fades before the end? Great question. I'm not sure if everybody is on the same page here. Creatine phosphate, you might have heard of taking creatine as a supplement. So creatine phosphate is the storage of energy in the muscle, and it's used especially beginning of exercise. The misperception here, if I may say that, however, it's not used up without reaching VO2 max. So PCR is mimicking, it's a mirror of VO2, and therefore it is impossible to empty it before fatigue, before failure of exercise. So the only thing that you can do, you can overpace in the beginning and use a lot of PCR, and then maybe the power fades a little bit, but it's impossible. Basically, if PCR would be emptied, you would not be able to continue pedaling. So Jose, that's not happening, but I know that the idea that it comes from is like overpacing and overpacing too hard. Does it have any effect? Yes. If you overpace too hard, it can have a small effect on the accuracy. This is why we have 2 sprints, two of the longer efforts, because the 4 minutes and the 8 minutes is used to calculate VO2 max. Dennis, back to you. Sorry to have you waiting.
No problem. Sorry, I have two small questions about carbs. Maybe I missed something. Can I eat something in test? And second one, if first sprint will be on the drops, can I change, for example, to the high position?
Yes. So Great question. Two great questions. First, about the nutrition. You are very welcome, everyone, to take in carbohydrates during this test. Okay, just make sure it's easy digestible. So better a gels than a plate of pasta maybe here, even though it might look funny in the camera. But go ahead, have whatever you can. Okay, whatever feels good with you. And I would advise obviously more liquid carbs, gels, drinks. Maybe right now in between the sprints, and therefore try to avoid it maybe before the 4 and the 8 minute, because that might feel heavy on you. About changing something in between the sprint. Great question. Thanks for that. That's exactly why we have 2 sprints. So if you now have a second sprint and your power is higher because you get adjusted to it, right? You know better how you pace yourself. You know better which position fits you on the handlebar. You know better which gear to use. That's perfectly fine. That's exactly why we do 2. Again, being very obsessed with the science. The science shows that there's some kind of training effect that the second sprint, not so much from the second to the third, but especially from the first to the second, you might see higher performance because people get accustomed to it, of a learning effect, so to speak. So yes, change whatever you feel you need to change. The algorithm will automatically look for the higher sprint with the higher VLamax and the higher power. So no worry about that.
Thank you for answer. Great. And one more. After second sprint, is it possible to stop and go to the toilet, for example?
That's fine with me. No worries at all. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, another Eddie came back here with this question. This was about the percentage FTP that is shown in the left corner of the tiles. Yes, Eddie, as Robbie explained to the beginning, and for everybody who was maybe not here, that's basically to start somewhere, right? So this session today is about the efforts, and as I hopefully made clear, about the accuracy of that and getting lab level accuracy, as just recently proven in the scientific literature. And then for the warm-ups, we need to have some ballpark of, obviously, what is a good warm-up intensity. And the idea to this ballpark is, as long as we don't have the precise metabolic profile and we don't have a precise maximum lactate steady state, we use the FTP just for practical reasons, because most people have an idea of it. And so they can enter that, and we can use this percentage to understand for the warm-up and the recovery phases what should be the power output. And at the end, it's not so important if it's not super accurate, because seriously, if it's, let's say, off by 20 watts or 30 watts or whatever, and you take a percentage of it, let's say 70%, then maybe your warm-up is 10 or 15 watts higher or 10 or 15 watts lower, but for the warm-up, it doesn't really matter. Okay. So that's why a guesstimate, an informed estimate on threshold FTP power, just to steer this protocol here is fine. We have 45 seconds to go. I still owe you the answer why you should be interested in FatMax intensity. For your low intensity training, I'm going to explain this, why we have only 30 seconds to go for or until the recovery period. This is because your body needs additional oxygen to burn fat. That is the reason. So if your body burns fat, the oxygen uptake needs to be higher. So basically, burning fat is an additional aerobic stimulus. So you could think about it this way: relatively speaking, for whatever intensity, if your body burns more fat, oxygen uptake is higher, and therefore the body receives a higher aerobic stimulus. Talking about aerobic system, you stop pedaling now, aerobic system is going to come down, creatine phosphate is going to refill. This is why you do these breaks. Okay, so there's also some nice scientific literature which proves that riding at FatMax is more efficient, spending the same amount of energy and the same amount of time, more importantly, is more efficient to increase VO2 max, to increase aerobic capacity, than just random any other, low intensity training zone. Because not because you burn more fat, which might be a collateral which you're interested in, to burn fat and maybe try to lose body fat. But the main thing is again, burning fat needs additional oxygen. So the more fat you burn, the more aerobic stimulus you have. And therefore, the more likely it is you will grow your VO2 max. So that's really why you want to do it. So Eddie is asking if we can use heart rate here instead of power. No, not really. Especially on the 20-second sprint, we really need a power measurement. Sorry for that. 25 seconds to go. Everybody get ready, please. Make sure you have the right gear. Make sure you remember to stay seated. Make sure that you know which foot to start with. So which leg is in front, which is behind. And make sure that you have the right gear and the right position. 5 seconds to go. 2, 1. Come on, give it everything. Your chance to increase to top your previous power. Come on, bring it up, Dennis. Come on, come on, come on. Speed it up, speed it up. Very good. David is killing it here. 10 seconds to go. Come on. It feels hard now. I know. Keep pushing. Only 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and easy. Great job. Awesome. So, hope you enjoyed it also.
That is so hard, Sebastian. I mean, when you push that hard, your whole body wants to just give up. If you just keep turning those legs around and getting that last little bit out to make this accurate, everyone did an awesome job.
Yeah. And, you know, the 4 minutes might be even more fun when it comes to that, right?
Way more fun, yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you guys going for the 4-minute test. I'll tell you that. I'm going to come in here and cheer you on and get you going. I've done a lot of these tests, a lot of them for Sebastian as well. Just got to keep concentrating. And sometimes you don't want to hear anything. That's fine. You can turn us down a little bit and just kind of get in your groove. But I will tell you, the way you make this accurate, the way you get really good numbers is if you give it everything you have. And you have to have an understanding of pacing, kind of have an idea of where you should be. You don't want to start and sprint and go as hard as you can. Some people make that mistake. Sebastian will make sure you don't. But ultimately, this is one of those things where the more you give, there's nothing left, the more accurate everything is. So do your best. Listen to Sebastian. He'll get you through it.
Thanks, Robbie. Yeah, looking forward to your support in the 4 minutes. Yeah, it's actually right. So we will need to be a little bit more careful with the pacing here in the 4 minutes to make sure that you give it all, but that's something to worry in about 8.5 minutes here. But you will make it. And again, it's good if your pacing is as constant as possible, but don't sweat it. Don't worry too much. If you overpace or underpace a little bit, that's all fine. The average power will just be slightly different and you will still get good results. In the meantime, I have a question here from James, who is saying first time he sees the velocity system and he's wondering how the data is handled. That's a great question. So the great thing about this and why I like it so much, the data processing basically happens all automatic. So the velocity system obviously has the testing protocol, so it understands exactly when an effort started and when an effort ended. And basically after you connected your INSCYD account to your velocity account, it all is automatic, meaning an athlete comes in, does a test, and after the test, the athlete can say, oh, that was a great test, looks good, I'm happy with it, I felt good, I felt like I could do what I was supposed to do, and then basically sends the data to the INSCYD system automatically. So once the athlete confirms, yes, this was a good test, I did know what to do, you know, the athlete sends it and it automatically goes to INSCYD, James, and it's automatically creating the metabolic profile. You don't need to do anything. It's just like magic, just like next morning you wake up and everything, so to speak, not the next morning, just seconds later, everything is in your system, right? So that's super smooth, nothing else you need to do there. You can basically ask your athletes to do it on Velocity by themselves. So there's two options. Either you can do a live session like we do right now, and you can coach your athletes through the test, which is great. Like Robbie said, it's great to connect to your athletes. Or I also recorded one of these workouts. So you have a pre-prepared workout, which you can basically just have your athlete do. So you don't need to guide them through it. So it can run, either you coach people or you take the canned workout and you don't have to do anything, and the athletes can do the test by themselves, and I walk them through the test, so to speak, for you. And in terms of how that's handled in your account, it's basically using your normal INSCYD subscriptions that you have, and then if you feel like you need additional credits in terms of tests or additional credits in terms of athletes, you can, James, either reach out. There's a button in your account. You can either reach out to change your subscription, or you can change it yourself. Or if you feel like I'm not so sure if I really want to have a bigger subscription, so to speak, just because of doing these tests, then don't worry. Then it will just be, as soon as you exceed your subscription, it's basically going to bill separate, but as a one-time billing. So no strings attached. It's pretty straightforward. If the velocity test, that come to your account are covered by your subscription, it's no additional cost. If you exceed your subscription, then it's just going to be a one-time charge, or you up your subscription, whatever you like. So Martin is asking, sorry, come back. No worries, Martin, to my previous question, but I use a Wahoo Kicker on my Swift bike. How can I be sure that the data is representative for their own gear? So I understand if you have a Wahoo Kicker, that's how I did the example session. That works. You can just use the power from the Wahoo Kicker, and that should work. So that seems to be pretty smooth. Should be no problem. I have a question here from Yiri from Belgium, who I need to forward to John or Robbie here. Yiri is asking if he needs a Velocity subscription as a coach or an athlete or both. And I honestly don't know the answer to that. But let me unmute athlete John here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sebastian. You can just reach out to us. Igor is going to share the link to set up a call. You can set up your own private portal. So it's going to be branded, logoed, customized to your coaching business. And we just set that up for you for free. And then you can use that as a portal to both do INSCYD tests, if that's how you primarily want to use it. You can also use it as a coaching platform. So we can go through and show you the different ways as a coach that you can activate it. But it's a very simple process, no commitments. We'll just get you set up in your own private space.
Great. Yeah. So we will connect you, Yiri, to John or to Robbie for that. Great guys. You will figure it out. But as you hear, it's pretty easy. I have my own portal here, and again, it's pretty easy, and you can do the INSCYD test or some trainings, whatever you want. Thanks, John, for that. Then while you guys are here and a little bit shy of 3 minutes to go, I will try to answer Mark's question in time to be back for you guys while you're pedaling. So Mark wants to know if the test result goes straight to the athlete or communicated to the athlete by the coach lab. Yeah, so Mark, the first question is, the data ends up in your INSCYD account, and then you can, basically use the data, leverage the data as you do with any other INSCYD testing. So you can create PDF reports of it, do screen recordings, schedule consultancy with the athlete, just send the results, whatever you do. I have to admit, I'm not 100% sure if I make a mistake here, John. Do you display any of the results in Velocity as well? No, I says, okay. So then, as I just explained, it basically feeds it automatically, Mark, in your INSCYD account. Second question here was, and I still have a little bit to go, in the Lactate protocol, I can customize key insight from a coach, lab perspective, and create a blend of the standard insights report with our additional insight. Yes, this is still possible. So you can still create the same report as you can do with the Lactate, just with this. The only difference is you don't need to do anything. It goes fully automated, Mark, into your account. And with that, I would like to give a spoiler alert. I don't know, Mark, if you are one of the beta testers, but we have been working on a new PDF report, and it has been tested in the last weeks with some users. So the INSCYD PDF report is going to be relaunched, and I know I'm biased, fair enough, but it's absolutely great, honestly. It's really, you can customize everything. It has a much, much better design. You can do whatever you want. So you will have a new PDF report coming soon, Mark, if you and everybody else, if you don't have that yet. With that, I would like to go back real quick to Stefan here. Question?
Yeah, one quick shout out. The new report is amazing, so can't wait to see it.
Thank you.
And then obviously in the 20-second sprint, the idea is like accelerate as quickly as possible. What should we do in the 4 minutes and the 8 minutes?
Yeah, great question. Let me walk you through that. Accelerate. You don't need to go out of the cell, okay? A bigger mistake would be to accelerate too fast, too hard in the beginning, okay? You don't want to ramp it up within a minute or so, but you can take some time to ramp it up, okay? So if you target, let's say 300 watts-ish, then don't start with 500, okay? So that's what we want. We want it as steady as possible, okay? But don't worry if you overpace a little bit, okay? 5 seconds to go, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, and start. 4 minutes, give it all, ramp it up, okay? That's going to be a nice, hard, but mostly steady workout here, Robbie, right? We want people to empty the tank, whatever they have.
Absolutely. I kind of like this 4 minute effort. It reminds me of the pursuit on the velodrome. It kind of feels like a pain that you can tolerate to some degree, but you're right kind of at that limit. It's obviously going to be slightly over your FTP, so make sure that at least 100% of your FTP is kind of the minimum that you want to see. Maybe upwards around 120% for some people, kind of in that range right there. So kind of play inside of it. But what I like to do is I kind of want, and Sebastian, this is just my pacing strategy. I like to start off pretty hard. I like to establish a nice high number. Then I come off of that number just a little bit, settle in, roll for another 2 minutes. And then if I have something at the end, I kind of open the throttle just a little bit. It's a little bit of a safer pacing strategy, kind of that J curve to some degree. But at the end of the day, some people like low to high, some people like high to low, some people like nice and steady. But if you want to experiment a little bit, at least don't put yourself in too big of a hole. Don't go super easy in the beginning and then have to like pour it on all at the end. You want to kind of disperse that effort through the whole 4 minutes.
Sounds like your pacing strategy on the track to first shock your competition, then things are coming back, and then you rip them apart. Great, I like that. Yeah, guys, so 1.5 minutes in, keep pushing. Now you should have a good feeling of where you are. As Robbie said, most of you will come out with whatever your FTP guesstimate was, 120, some higher anaerobic guys. David, maybe more like 130%, okay? That might be something, but we will see, okay? No problem at all. Try just to, push as steady as possible. Keep the pace. You are halfway through, right? 2 minutes to go, 2 minutes done, looking good.
And sometimes, Sebastian, I even move around a little bit on the seat. I search for power in different areas. I try to just I keep myself smooth, but I'm always trying to find just a little bit more. And I think as you start to approach the second half of this 4 minute test, and I know you're all hurting, you're kind of maximizing that oxygen utilization. Stay in the pocket, concentrate, think about what you're doing. Make sure you get that breath nice and deep. Make sure all that air, as much air as you can possibly use, is getting deep down into your rib cage, into your abdomen, and really focus on keeping that pedal going around and around.
Great. Yeah, 120 to go. Also, guys, you can try what often helps. Try to envision to push a little bit over the upper dead spot and pull a little bit when you are on the lower spot. It often feels a little bit smoother, and you can talking about finding some additional power, you might find a better feeling for a short amount of time there. This said, last minute entered, 55 seconds to go, less than a minute. If you feel like you have anything left in the tank, then now is the time to very, very slowly try to ramp it up. If you feel like you're maxed out, then just try to hold it, okay? If you felt like that maybe went out a little bit too hard, try to hold it here and just keep it. If you feel like you have a little bit left, there's only 30 seconds to go, okay? So 30 seconds left here in this effort. Maybe one of the most key efforts here. You will get a scientific validated lab level accuracy VO2 max. This is why you do this here, right? 18 seconds to go. Almost done. Come on. You just have the last 10 seconds now starting.
Try to get 1% more. Try to get 1 more watt on your average. Just go, go, go. 5 seconds to go. Give it everything you have right here. Get 1 more watt. Nice job.
Good. Excellent. So now another 10 minutes recovery. Keep pedaling. Keep pushing. Just really, really easy, okay? You're off the hook now. I have plenty of questions over here in the webinar, okay? So you will hear me talking a little bit more. You can just relax, drink something. Easy gear, just spin the legs, okay? That's just super important. Great job, everyone. So I'm going to pivot back to the webinar here to answer some of the questions. One was about the redundant data and the 2 sprints. And let me repeat, picking up on that also for us, in terms of the algorithm, the 4-minute, 8-minute is also to some extent redundant because we can use both to calculate a lab level accuracy, as I had recently shown in the literature. So the question here is, what are the criteria for accepting the data, 5 or 10% difference, to be redundant? I meant redundancy in terms of measuring the same value twice. So having 2 efforts to measure VLamax and having 2 efforts to measure VO2 max, that's the redundancy. The algorithm itself then has some more intelligence built around it to understand how to use this data and which data point maybe to discard and which one to use. There's a little bit more math going on than just a percentage difference. And this is why we do have 2 to ensure if one is bad or not as good, that we do have the other effort and we can use this, okay? Ingo is asking, why are you doing the 4-minute before the 8-minute? He just did a 12 and a 4-minute with another protocol. Honestly, Ingo, as I mentioned, that should not really matter. It is, I would argue, maybe a little bit more psychological effect to say the one that, is a lower power output comes to the end. So you can see here the highest 2 sprints. That's where we start. And then the average power, so to speak, drops as the duration becomes longer. You can do these efforts in whatever order you want. I would, however, recommend to do the 2 sprints first because you do have even more lactate in the 4-minute ones and the ones that people just did. Cindy, give me 1 second. And therefore, it's advisable to really do the sprints first, but then you can do it in order if you want. And if you do it outdoors, if you don't do it here on Velocity, you can also do it within 2 or 3 days or 2 sessions. Cindy.
So I'm at 2,300 meters where I live here. So how does that change the results? Obviously, there's less oxygen.
Yeah, great question. Well, how will it change the results? The question is, Cindy, more like, for how long have you been there and will you use the data there? So for example, if you live there and you are acclimatized to that environment, then the data will be different compared to how it would look like if you do it on sea level. But if you use the data in a similar altitude, then it is still the right data for you to use within training.
Okay, so I've been here 26 years, so I'm acclimated. Yes. The problem is I train here, but I race at sea level.
Okay, great. So then it comes a little bit to the question, if you train there and you use the data primarily for training, then you've done everything right. If you want to use the data, for example, for pacing or fueling at sea level, then you either need to maybe increase the power numbers by 5 to 10% for whatever you see in the report, or you would need to retest on a sea level test base, so to speak, right?
Okay.
In order to really use it.
Okay, thank you.
And then the other tip is there, if you stay low for a longer time, like let's say more than a week, then give it a week until you test again when you're in altitude to be able to adapt to it again. So don't test immediately. So when you try to get adapted a little bit to the lower sea level and come back, don't test immediately, because then the numbers will not be accurate for your training.
Okay, thank you.
Great, no worries. Stefan.
Questions. One is, how accurate or differences in accuracy do you see if we were to do the 8-minute test tomorrow instead of combining within an hour? So I guess that's my first question.
So I don't think there's one fixed percentage number which applies for everyone across all boards. You might see some differences in some athletes. You might see you will also see volatility in terms of like day-to-day variation a little bit, right? And therefore it can throw a little bit off. But in terms of what we do here, I would not worry about it too much because, for example, if your power output is 10-minute higher or lower, it will only change a decimal in the VO2 max. And if you think that, for example, the retest reliability of a metabolic card is about 2 to 2.5 milliliters, if you throw it off here by 10 watts and it changes 0.3 milliliters, that is lower than the range than a lab test could detect.
Thank you. And the second question, I've been doing this test probably at least a dozen times over the last 6 months or so. I've been using 3 minutes and 6 minutes. You're using 4 minutes and 8 minutes. Do you find that's more reliable data?
No, so we have validated on 3 to 12 minutes. And therefore you could choose those efforts as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have 3:45 to go to the 8 minutes. Keep recovering, keep pedaling easy, drinking like Cindy and Dennis do here. And I will answer a few more questions. If you have questions here, then bring it up, okay? So that's a question about doing this kind of test outside. Let me read the questions here quickly first. In case of doing the test outside, sometimes we don't generate power. Does the algorithm take into consideration, or the best way is to choose a road that allows us to pedal? Yes, so you should try to choose a stretch of road which allows you to do the 8 minutes, the 4 minutes, or whatsoever uninterrupted. However, as Stefan just asked, the protocol so the algorithm eats everything between 3 to 10 minutes, or more precisely 2.5 to 10 minutes. So for example, even if you're outdoors and you plan for 4 minutes, but after 3:30 you run into a traffic light or stop sign or whatsoever, then it's not too bad because the algorithm will also take this, or you run out of roads. It's not so big of a problem. Okay. Jens is asking, Stefan, you had a negative percentage in your battery value. That's a quick one to answer. That's because that is, the estimated FTP and the guesstimated W prime. And because, it's a guesstimate we start with before the test, it's natural that the numbers are not that accurate and therefore come to a negative thing. Without me going into the scientific basis of W prime and why the charge-recharge model scientifically has some inaccuracy, to speak. But that's another discussion, Jens, we can have if you want. Eddie is asking, can this protocol be used for running? Yes, we do have a running PPD test as well. You can do it either with GPS watches if you want. That's one option. And there's even a simpler option. You can just take people onto a running track and ask them to run 1,000 meters, for example, and 2,000 meters all out and stop the time. So you can it sounds too stupid simple, but it's more accurate than trying to get accurate GPS data. Have people run, as I said, 2 sprints, and 1,000 meters stops the time, and 2,000 meters stops the time, and that's it. That is the most that simple protocol you can have. 1:15 to go for the 8 minutes. Let me answer the last question here. Why do people still do FTP 20 minutes test? Doesn't make sense at all, or what do you think? I don't think that you want to know what I really think, but basically, I haven't understand the 20 minutes test in the first place anyway. I mean, of course, I do understand that's a simple way to give you somewhat of an idea. And yes, if you have a 20 minutes test, then it's maybe better to have no test at all, just of a benchmark, but it's not giving you good information about what you should be doing in training. And if you look at the scientific literature, it's proven that many times that it can be so far off from like real thresholds and so on. So with that, I pivot back to the live session. We have 28 seconds to go to the 8 minutes. Last effort of the day. I hope this motivates you to give it all one more time. The power output obviously is much, much lower. When I say much, it's about 10, 50% lower, depending on who you are as an athlete, compared to the 4 minutes. You have a little bit more time to ramp it up. You can change gears. 5 seconds to go. Stay seated as much as you can, and off we go. Last 8 minutes of the day. Another all-out effort. Empty the tank after 8 minutes. What is that, Robbie, for you in terms of a track effort? There's no 8,000
Yeah,
meters.
the 8-minute efforts, it's more like a prologue, right? The Tour de France. These guys are going for about 8 minutes at the Tour de France prologue. They always seem to start a little bit hard and settle in and then kind of pour it out at the end. You can use that same strategy that you did for the 4-minute effort as the 8-minute effort. You just don't want to do quite as extreme of numbers, right? You want to keep this pretty much within 5 or 10% the entire time. You kind of know what you did for the 4 minutes. Now you can make quite an adjustment between that and your FTP and figure out what a good number would be for 8 minutes. But don't let that hold you back either. If you're starting to feel pretty good and the effort doesn't feel that tough, don't be afraid to ramp it up just a little bit. But before you have to go a little bit at that new intensity before you determine if it's too much or too little, because you don't want to overdo it too quickly. So be patient. This is one of those efforts that, again, you kind of get into a groove, you get into a rhythm. And like Sebastian said, I love what you said about getting that foot over the top quickly, dropping that heel down, and just kind of using that as kind of a ramp. Whenever you see Pogacar doing that, when he does those attacks and those long-range attacks, it almost looks like he's dropping that heel and just kind of skiing a little bit as he brings that pedal down.
Yeah, and it's a good way to really imagine it, because we focus so much on pushing. If you focus a little bit more about pushing forward instead of pushing down and pulling backwards, it can really feel like providing a little bit of ease into the effort, right? This said, we are 2 minutes in, right? So 6 minutes to go, guys. You should come to somewhat of a rhythm here, as Robbie said now, okay? Hopefully it didn't start too hard. Try to hold it now. If you feel like ask yourself a bit, can I hold this for the full 8 minutes? Then keep going with this one.
And I think what you said is really important. If you mispace this a little bit, your body figures out how to get all the energy out by the end. Like, even if you go a little bit too hard in the beginning or too hard at the end of the day, the data gets really good, because when you're left with nothing at the end, it all kind of normalizes out, and ultimately you give yourself a really good effort. So don't beat yourself up if you're suffering a little bit. Just bring down the power a little bit. You're going to come around. You're going to ultimately be able to manage the effort. But the one thing that I always say is, don't worry about how much time you have left. Think about executing perfectly. Make sure you're pedaling properly. Make sure you're breathing properly. Make sure you're nice and calm. Do whatever it is that you can do to optimize the effort right now.
Great, yes. And with that, you have 3 minutes done, 5 minutes to go. Keep it up. Everybody looking super strong here. Stefan obviously knows it all, done dozen of those tests in the last days or weeks. And remember, this will bring your metabolism to VO2 max as well. You are already on the way to VO2 max. If you would measure now, you would likely be sitting at 90-95% of VO2 max right now. So it's going to be similar hard as the previous one, right? So you know you can do it because you've done it before, okay? And maybe there's a chance to up your result a little bit, to bring up that number a little bit more as we are approaching here the 4-minute mark. So almost close to starting another team pursuit here for you, Robbie.
Yes, and I always kind of look at my heart rate as well. If you've connected your heart rate and you're looking at that, you should be getting pretty close to 95% of your max heart rate. That's a good indicator that you're giving a really big effort. And I would love to know, Sebastian has been in the team car behind a time trialer doing the Tour de France prologue. What are you telling him here with 2 kilometers to go? Bring him in.
Yeah, so when we are in the time trial, first thing with 2K to go is really to stay on your rhythm, concentrate on posture. Of course, there we have aerodynamics, so it's about keeping your head down and staying in position, focusing on pedaling strong. And then as we approach the final K, if we approach the final 1.5K, we will we will put in these check marks to see, can we do it? Can we push it a little bit more, right? Do we have something left in the tank to ramp it up. And that's a question where we need to go in like 90 seconds-ish here to see, can we give a little bit more? Right now, it's all about staying in rhythm, staying in posture, concentrating on your pedaling stroke, concentrating on keeping the power, constant breathing, regular breathing. Looks great. I see people going to the max heart rate, staying above 100%. It all looks good so far.
Now, Sebastian, can they shift their gears or they have to stay in the same gear?
Anytime, shift anytime you feel you need to shift. However, right now, you should be in the rhythm already. Right now, likely you will not have the need to shift, because what you do right now is likely, you likely end up there. You will likely shift more in the first minutes. And if you have to bring the power a little bit up or down, this will likely happen right now just with a slightly change of the cadence, right? And cadence can be whatever you're comfortable with. Some people, like Robbie said, I had a guy I coached to world time trial champion in 2008, man, that feels like a long time ago because it was, going with an average cadence of 80. I had other guys winning world time trial championships with an average cadence of 95 to 100. That's up to you guys, okay? So choose whatever cadence you are comfortable here with, going into, so to speak, the last kilometer, going into the last 2 minutes here of today.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to slide a little bit further forward on your seat if you just try to find a little bit of power, or sliding back just a little bit. Sometimes when you just move a little bit on your seat and a little bit with your upper body, you can free up those hip flexors a little bit and try to find just a little bit more horsepower as you kind of enter these last 90 seconds. And I always try, no matter what, to really focus and concentrate on lifting my power by 1 or 2 watts before the end. And if you just kind of put that positive thought in your brain, it's amazing what your body can kind of come up with over the last 90 seconds.
As I said, we are in the last 90 seconds here. So that's a time where you can try to ramp it up a little bit, right? Stay above this 100%. You just have 70 seconds to go. Remember, that is the last 70 seconds of all the efforts you have to do. There's only coming recovery afterwards, okay? So if you have a little bit left, try to find out, do you have a little bit left here? It's 1 minute to go, okay? Now it's a time, going back to your question about the time trial, we are on the last 500 meters here, which means now is the time to try to bring it up a little bit, okay? Don't be afraid to try that. Don't be afraid to try to bring it up a little bit. Even if it's just for 10 seconds and you try to hold it, you don't have to try to bring it up all the time to the end. Bring it up a little bit and try to hold a little bit higher level as we're going into the last 30 seconds here.
All the pain goes away, everybody, in 25 seconds. You're going to be mad that you didn't go harder. So take away that excuse and give it everything you possibly have over these last 20 seconds. You will not be disappointed if you do that.
That's right. 15 seconds to go. That's even shorter than the sprint, guys. We have 10 seconds here. Come on. Keep pushing, Stefan. Looks very good. Come on, Dennis. 5 seconds to go. Keep going. Keep going. 2, 1. Great job. Awesome. So you just completed the last of the efforts here, the 8-minute effort. Again, another effort which we are going to use to get you a VO2 max value, maybe the most crucial number, not only for performance, but also if you're interested in that when it comes to predicting health span and lifespan. VO2 max is the single most important marker for that. And you get this with scientifically proven lab level accuracy. As we say that, I'm going to jump real quick to a few more questions here. Pivoting quite a lot from cycling to swimming. Is there not the possibility to have a test like that in swimming? Not exactly like this. There has been some discussion around, should we do something like this? In swimming, it's much more difficult to translate the speeds then because of swimming economy, but that's a different discussion to have, Jiri. Hope, like, very honestly open to hear from you what you think about that. Coming back to James' question here about the data handling. So in Velocity, when we finish this here in 2 minutes and 10 seconds, the data will be pushed automatically to INSCYD. The report will be created automatically. And James' question is, when I'm in the INSCYD app myself and have to do it manually, I still have to mark those efforts instead of the software doing automatically. This is correct. We do have some intelligence built around correcting this effort. So you can be a little bit sloppy or less precise with marking those efforts. But at this moment, we still want you to be in charge, so to speak, and control that you do have the correct efforts selected. We give you help to make sure you corrected the highest performance possible, but there is still a manual element to that at this moment as we speak. Might go away, however. 120 to go, guys, in terms of warming down. And I have another question here from Ingo, asking about Stefan is in the TT position. Yes. I obviously did see that. I didn't mention about that. It's a little bit similar to the question about staying seated in the sprint, or about Cindy's question, doing it at altitude. You should, in general, not only with this test, in general, you should test in an environment or in the same condition, same environment as you want to use the data for. So if Stefan's main training is done in the TT position, then he should do on the TT bike. When I coached Tony Martin and we prepared for World Championships, we would do testing only on the TT bike because this is what we wanted to use the data for. So that's basically the same thing here. And the same goes for indoor cycling. If you do indoor cycling, then I really recommend doing it, testing indoors as well, because it's more closer to the real application. With that, we have 20 seconds to go.
Nice job, Sebastian.
Almost done. I didn't do a lot. Those guys did. 10 seconds. So I'm not sure if it's the right wording, but I hope you enjoyed this test as much as you can enjoy a test. But especially what you are going to enjoy for sure is the results that you get and what you're able to do with those results. That is going to be really awesome, because there's a lot of information that you can use to basically steer your training, make better informed decisions about your training. And I know I might sound like a broken record here, but why? Let me give you one last thing on that. Why you will find this is so important, and why this is superior than just power testing. Think about it this way. The power that you measure is a physical parameter. That's just mechanical power. But what you try to change by training is your physiology. Right? That's what you do. You try, whatever you do in exercise training, it's weightlifting or running or swimming, what you try to do, you try to change your physiology. So therefore, we should base training on the physiology, right? If we want to increase VO2 max, we should look at what is my VO2 during exercise. If we want to train the gut and be more efficient at fueling, we should look at fueling metrics. And this is exactly what you will get out of that. With that, I think we can end the session here. Of course, you guys can keep pedaling easy. I hope you liked it a lot. I will take in more questions here from the guys in the webinar. Randy is already done. That's good. Make sure you warm down sufficiently. Ingo is asking about the resting period in between the 4 and 8 minutes. 5 minutes, 20, Ingo, you did 25 minutes. Yes, that's great. 10 minutes is like we did here. It's more on the shorter end. Will still work, but yeah, 25 minutes or even on the next day might be even a little bit better. So with that,
Sebastian, I'm headed out for a 2-hour road ride outside now.
That's good for you. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. It's getting dark over here, so no outdoor riding for me, but that's good.